Welcome to I'm Going In, the newest and hottest podcast sharing incredible stories of strength, resilience, and love. This podcast is about that moment when you face trauma or been knocked down and you decide, I'm going in. Whether it's to help yourself stand back up, to strengthen your faith, or to support others, this is where inspiration begins. Like and subscribe to my social channels and get ready to be uplifted as I introduce our next incredible guest on I'm Going In. Welcome to I'm Going In. I'm Todd Blyleven, and we have a crazy special guest today, Rick Bistline. He's a 20-year veteran in law enforcement. During the pressures of the job and going through some hardships outside of the job and the elements of life, he almost took his own life. And if it weren't for a supervisor that recognized he needed some help, and we're going to go and get into that, but he wouldn't be here today. And but Rick has a PhD, and he's part of the Arbinger Institute. He's bringing humanity back into the workplace, and he's really helping police departments try to change their culture. And I'm just really excited to have you on, Rick. So I appreciate you coming.
It's my pleasure, Todd. Always a pleasure.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for your service. You know, I know a lot of people, they say thank you, and there's a more of just a top level appreciation of what law enforcement first responders do for our community, our military service. But really, from the bottom of my heart, I understand the pressures. I've grown up in it in terms of having my friends, my family. I know the sacrifices, my own personal experiences. I've seen what you've seen. I've experienced that trauma. So sincerely, thank you for what you've gone through and how you're able to stand up and walk tall for yourself today. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I'd like to just kind of dive in. I mean, you and I spoke a little bit, prior to the show, and you've got some really cool educational nuggets that I think are going to give somebody a relatable story that they can attach themselves to, and a feeling that maybe they have in their life. Because you don't have to be in law enforcement. You don't have to be a first responder. You don't have to be in the military to experience trauma in your life. And that's what this show is all about, is defining the moment when you've realized I'm going in. And whether you're putting yourself in the line of fire, trying to help other people, you're putting yourself in the line of fire, or maybe doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and you know that there's going to be some sort of consequence with that. In the end of that, after going through the trauma that we experience in our lives, there's another moment when you say, I'm going in. I can't take this anymore. And it may not be those words, but it's that defining moment when you stand back up for yourself, you pin your shoulders back, and you take whatever's going to come, but you end up being able to walk tall for yourself down the road. So let's dive into your past. I mean, you talked about you had worked in several different departments from across the country. The pressures of the job itself from law enforcement. Maybe we could start there. And why'd you become a cop? I always like asking that question first. What drove you to become a law enforcement police officer?
Yeah, it's a great opening, Todd. I appreciate that. There's so much there. It goes back to some things I like to talk about later about self-awareness, and I
Yeah.
think that's important piece of this. But so I grew up in a law enforcement family. So my dad was a police officer. He retired after 33 years on the job. He was small community in Pennsylvania, outside of Harrisburg, and I grew up around it. He took me to school in his police car, and he became the chief of the community. I spent my time at the police department. He was a volunteer firefighter, so I spent time at the firehouse all the time. So I've been around public safety my whole life, and it just, for a time, I actually was like, I don't want to be a policeman. I don't want to be a fireman. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I got to high school, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to even be a cop. And for whatever reason, it's something I couldn't get away from. And I realized, you know what, this is, I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to be a police officer. And I took that path, and it led me to where I am. And I'm thankful for him, for all of his guidance and everything that he did, and all of his service, and getting him to see that interact. I remember one day very vividly going to school, and there was a car accident, a car flipped over, he pulled over and he got out and did his thing. And I'm just sitting there watching. It's like, I want to go home and watch cartoons, but that's
Yeah.
it. But then you sit and think about it. When you're a kid, you don't really pay attention to it. But as I think about it now, I'm like that. Those are some of the defining moments in getting to me where I am today.
That's a I love these stories. I love the story where your dad was you're basically in that you carried on that lineage. And the story of your dad just, car rolls over, that's his mentality. I'm almost kind of chaos is calling, and I'm in that controlled moment. That's where I do my best work, and I'm going to go help somebody. When a lot of people growing up, like when I was growing up, I wanted to be a Marine, I wanted to be a cop, right? Or I wanted to play baseball, and my dad played baseball.
Right.
So I wanted to be my dad. That's like I always say that, but that's the truth of it. So I grew up in a Major League Baseball clubhouse around that type of mentality, but my mom's side was the military, law enforcement, more your first responder mentality. So I was a kid wearing fatigues, getting taken down to like Camp Pendleton and going through the devil pups training and all this stuff. And in that same kind of experience through high school, I didn't know if I wanted to join the Marine Corps or if I wanted to play baseball. I wanted to play baseball, but I had this kind of pull passion. So I kind of went through that same feeling. I think a lot of people probably go through that, at a younger age. I've got a son that's, he's going to be 21 the end of this year, but he's a
Wow.
college, baseball player. And I think as a father, you kind of try to push him to make a decision in his life just to at least think about options of what you can do outside of sports, right? To provide your family with a good life down the road, a job you can retire on. And law enforcement really provides a lot of those great benefits, right? To be able to work on the job for 20, 25, 30 years, whatever that is for you, and provides you with a pretty good pension and retirement fund at the end of your tenure. However, you don't think about the day-to-day calls, right? And you don't think about the fact that law enforcement, and this really needs to change in our society to a point where when you go on a call as an officer and it's a horrific call, it's something that's traumatizing to you, something even though it's all your coping skills and you growing up with a father that was a police officer, probably never hearing him say anything about his job, right? And you could talk about that, but and I'll get to my point. When you experience that trauma, and then all of a sudden you're getting back in your car and you're being called to another call, and then another call, and then at the end of the day, you're by yourself anyways, because most of the time you guys are ride or police or people are riding in your own vehicles. You're not able to really process that with your team. And talking to a lot of like firefighters, they go back as a unit, right? There's usually 5 in a squad or whatever. They're going back, they're processing that together, they're eating dinner together, they're trying to create some sort of tradition or something on how they deal with that trauma together. You don't. And that's, I think, the biggest and the hardest task for officers is and I want you to talk about this and changing the humanity and the culture and everything, because it starts with senior leadership all the way down and recognizing that today's officer goes through a ton of stuff, even if it's a traffic stop and walking up, you never know what's going to happen, just that fear of your life. So I long-winded there, but I wanted to paint a picture of the type of trauma that a law enforcement officer goes through on the daily. And you probably didn't see that with your dad. And what was that like, you going into that moment of being an officer, having an idea of what your dad went through? Did your dad give you any guidance on like how to handle some of those mental pressures at all? Or and what was your walk through all that? Because obviously you went through a lot of stuff to get to where one day the supervisor said, "Hey man, Rick, like you need to do this." So can you just take us through that journey? And I'm going to give you the mic and tell us your story, man.
Sure. And there's so many ways I can go here.
Yeah.
I think about some friends that I have that have been in those situations, and so I'll start at the beginning. It's probably a little bit easier, but I started looking for policing jobs. I actually wanted to get away from Pennsylvania because I didn't, Pennsylvania policing in general has has this stigma and this culture that we've so hard to try to get away from. And one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing now is it's this us versus them mentality, partly built because of the way the culture is, partly built because of the sustained trauma that we go through, and the fact that we just don't trust anybody. We can't open ourselves up to
Yeah.
people because we open ourselves up to emotion. And sometimes you got to do things and suppress that and deal with it and move on. As
Yeah.
you said, you get back in the car, you got to go to the next call. There's so many situations. I mean, I got more stories that I forget than I remember,
Yeah.
and the ones that I forget are the ones that are bad. I mean, I don't think about them anymore. But there's defining moments for sure. Excuse me. But anyway, my dad didn't, he didn't talk about this stuff.
Mm.
It's he's that prototypical 70s and 80s cop that just professionalism. He was uniform always looked good. His car was always clean. He's a clean freak anyway, but he just didn't talk about that stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
it was even in our relationship, and it's not his fault. We just
Right.
never we didn't have that kind of emotional connection. Um, and anyway, so when I got into policing, when I finally, I moved out of the state, I went to Georgia. I started out in a small department, Smyrna, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And I love the job. I mean, and I don't, it's not bragging or anything like that, but I've been told that I was really good at what I did. And I think I was.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of great mentors. I had a lot of great trainers, a lot of great friends that helped lift me up to do the job the right way. But I stumbled a lot. And I made a lot of mistakes, a lot on the personal side, and a lot of because you get into that culture, you get socialized in a way of, you have that us versus them mentality. And
Mm.
sometimes that power that you have, it just naturally progresses and it allows you to, I'm better than you because you're breaking the law and I'm not. And it's not that it's a psychological thing. And it's something
Yeah.
I've learned quite a bit, and especially leadership.
I think, Rick, one thing I'd like to touch on because you're bringing up something, and I don't want to interrupt you
Mhm.
often, but I think you're touching on something real quick because I think as you relate it to, say, the corporate world, for example, if I'm going into my board meeting, every single meeting, and my boss is constantly on my ass all the time, and I'm never, every time I go into that board meeting, I'm going to have this kind of anxiety like, oh God, what's she going to say? Or what's he going to say now? If it's always a negative experience, and then all of a sudden you have a positive experience, it kind of keeps you in the job because that's what you're doing. That's essentially what you all do as officers on the daily with, you got to write a ticket. Do you really want to write that ticket? No, but the person broke the law. You've got to arrest someone. Do you really want to arrest that some? No, you don't. But that person broke the law. And then there's the uplift where people are actually kind and they, do something, say something nice to you, but you're usually dealing with people that don't want to talk to you. And so I just wanted to touch on that and relate it to how would you feel if if you were a teacher and your kids were a complete menace all the time? You're not really going to want to be a teacher all the time. Uh, so taking that mentality of constant pressure, right? And then how did you deal with that then?
Well, the same way the rest of us deal with it, alcohol,
Yeah,
doing risky things you probably shouldn't do,
yeah,
and just closing yourself off even talking about it. Like in my wife now, she's amazing, and she's in education. Actually, it's funny you bring that point up. I
mm,
see the sustained. It is what it is. It's sustained trauma. She comes
yeah,
home every night. She's, excuse my language. And she told me last night it was a shit show today again. That's what she deals with every single day. And when you do that,
yeah.
it just builds and builds and builds. And then, she retreats into herself. And it's difficult for me because I'm trying to help and uplift her. But has such a hard. I mean, she has 10 times the hardest job in the world than I
Oh,
do.
teachers are,
Yeah,
ugh,
there's so much,
yeah,
but and it comes back to, I think, one of the things that I do now, and I have the opportunity to do, is when we start seeing our situations and seeing people, and I have this conversation with my colleague Jack Colwell all the time. It when especially in law enforcement, and going back to the law enforcement piece, is we remember why we got in the job in the first place, is to help people, to serve. But in order to do that, there's got to be a supporting culture and a supporting leadership, command structure and development practices and things in place, like health and wellness is becoming a huge thing in law enforcement. So one of my best friends is part of the peer support team in my old department in Fairfax
Awesome.
County, Virginia. And that never, I mean, it started when I was later in my career. And my first department didn't have anything like that. And we had no support system whatsoever. And for me, it was, I was always focusing inward. And that's one of the things that I talk about with my colleague is, in policing, we're focused on us. We can make the next arrest. We're locking people up. We're taking people to jail. That's what we're focused on. Helping people becomes secondary. And that's not why we got in the job in the first place. Recognizing humanity in other people is the thing that really, when I got to a certain point, when I got through my own experience, which we'll get into a little bit, but it allowed me to start seeing people in a different way, not just the people that I'm serving, but the people around me, the people that to my left and to my right, my peers, my friends, my family. And it opened up opportunities for me that had never existed before, and allowed me to talk about things like I'm a completely different person than I was even
Yeah.
3 years ago, because
Wow.
I'm continuing to grow, and I understand that now. I wish earlier in life, I wish earlier in my career, I would have had these opportunities, and that's what I'm able to do now, is bring some of that learning and experience to help self-awareness and build that in law enforcement. Because when I got in, like you said, none of that existed. It's all the time, every single day. It's over and over and over, and you close yourself off to the rest of the world, and that's the problem we run into.
That's amazing. And at some point, it got to be too much for you,
It did.
right?
Yeah, and it as much as I love locking people up and love going to do this and running, chasing people, and all that fun stuff that we love shooting, chasing, and running after people and
Keeping us
locking
safe,
people up.
mind you. I mean, keeping us safe. You're
That's
chasing bad guys,
Yes,
not
that's true.
good people,
Not just
right?
people just to chase them down the road. You're absolutely
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
right. And
Hey,
but
let's chase that guy. No, it's not that way. The guy did something or the girl did something, right? So, yeah.
exactly.
But
And that's where and that's the thing people don't understand, is that all they see is that stuff, and they think that
yeah,
they see. And the other problem is, see cops high-fiving on the camera and everything else. It's not a celebration of, oh, we just took somebody down. It's a celebration of, we got a bad guy off the street. Yeah, the perception is what's bad. But anyway, um,
it's a team effort there though. That's
correct.
the other part that I think people lack to realize is that just because you see an officer riding in one car, that officer is part of a team, a
Right.
unit. There's constant communication. It's a brotherhood, sisterhood mentality. And it really is, unfortunately, you're on the right in terms of wanting to do good all the time. And you're going after, unfortunately, people that are on the opposite side of the fence, wanting to break the law. And it's
Yep.
this constant battle of who's right and who's wrong. And yeah, there's mistakes that are made and all these different things. And we're not getting into politics or any of that other garbage.
No.
But the mentality of that team brotherhood, sisterhood, it's there. So when you're busting your ass and you get somebody that maybe was a challenge, there is a celebration. It's the same thing in sports. Yeah, it's not glorified because the guy hit a home run or he scored the winning run or he threw the pitch and it dominated the game or whatever. But there's this, yes, he did it. He cleared someone or he whatever. So go ahead. I just wanted to make sure that was that's a really good point you brought up. So
Yeah, and it is a team mentality. The problem is, it goes back to what you said earlier. It's, you go to calls and you focus on yourself, and a lot of a lot of it drives inward, and that's what happened to me. And you don't you while you joke around with your buddies and have a good time, you don't talk about productive things. You talk about, what the last call was and what you did and how you handled it and everything else, but you don't talk about how you felt, and
yeah,
you don't
wow,
talk about those things. And
yeah,
and that's what drove me. Was, I was focused on me and the self-interest that I had and seeing people as objects or vehicles to get to where I needed to go because you're in my way. I'm trying to get my job done. Tell me what your problem is so I can get out of here and go handle something else. There's bad guys out there. I got to go handle it. And we close ourselves off. We become self-interest, become self-focused. And that is where I went deep, deep, deep into, what we call the Arbiter Institute, the box. I went deep into the box where
Okay.
I was stuck in a place where I was only self-interested, and it impacted my first marriage. It impacted my relationship with my family. It impacted my relationship with my friends. And I did things that I drank and anyway, there's so much there. And, I, I think
Talk
about
about it
this.
though, because I
No,
think that this is really important. I think it really, I mean, you're not alone in this,
right.
right? And it's not just a law enforcement officer, but you're talking about pressures and how you were dealing with those, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's again the drinking and hanging out with your buddies, and you're not talking to your spouse, and you're not talking to your family. There's infidelity issues, and that is one of the biggest side impacts to that issue is, in law enforcement, unfortunately, and any public service, I've seen it in fire departments too, is, infidelity runs rampant. And it's because, you get in the job and you're working one-on-one with somebody side by side in a team with somebody that understands you, understands what you're going through, but you don't talk about it, or you're okay just to talk about with them, but your spouse at home doesn't understand. They would never understand. And that's where we go down that path. And
Yeah.
instead of having healthy conversations with people that actually you obviously got together with in the first place for a reason,
Yeah.
you're shunning them for other things because of you see it as it's self-interest. It's I'm interested in me, and this person understands, but you don't get it. You don't get it. And that's what happened to me. That's how I saw it.
Wow.
And
That's deep right there.
it
Yeah.
is, and I'm telling you, it still runs rampant.
Yeah.
It's because that's how the culture and the socialization is, because we don't talk about these things. And I see it. I see it in my old department. I see it in all my old departments. I see it, and now it's, these stories are coming out in the news because, scandals and all this other stuff. And then people coming into the job see that stuff, especially nowadays, and they're like, I don't want no part of that. And it's not about me, it's about my service. But the machine is bigger and the culture is bigger than me. And sometimes I get sucked into that, and that's where I end up. And then my career goes down the tube. And that's what happened to me. I got to a point where I went from one department to another department, finally my third department. And I don't know, I think about it now and I wonder if I was searching for, a way out. I hate to say it that way. I don't know if that's the case. I
Yeah.
always justified my movement as I went from a very small department of less of probably 100 officers to a slightly larger department, about 400 officers. And then I went to Fairfax County, which was, 1,700 at the time, 1,600 at the time, I think.
Wow.
I was looking, I said I was looking for career advancement, but I think what I was looking for was to run from my problems and focus on trying to find a way out. And I just found my way deeper into a hole, um, which
That's
led me.
interesting that you say that because I think that happens a lot. Like you're
Agreed.
stuck at work, and a lot of times we don't dive into our own mental approach to why we're unhappy. We just know, like, hey, I want something better for myself. So I'm going to leave this job. I'm going to go to another one. I'm going to leave this school. I'm going to go to another one. You're still going to find the same issues, right? And
Right.
that's so
Yeah.
when you got to Fairfax County, then what did you experience there that was different, and how did that take you even further
It,
down?
and now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I think I struggled quite a bit when I went there because it was my third department. I went through the longest academy I'd ever, because I had to go through academies, which I would never recommend anybody do. I mean, it was fun to a point, but I just wanted to do the job. And when I got out, it was different. I had different things I had to do. I was to a point where I don't want to do this crap. You're making me jump through hoops for all this stuff. And because making an arrest, cost me 17,000 pieces of paperwork I got to do. And, you have older technology. You don't have what I had when I'm in my old department. And I started complaining and bitching and moaning, and the people are different. I'm working in a I worked in McLean, which is where the CIA is, Langley, and very ritzy neighborhoods. And like, I'm working up here. I want to be in the trenches. And I started really going deep inside myself, and just, I started to not like myself. And
Mm,
that was telling to what would, be foreshadowed for the future. But I started to dislike what I did. And I actually tried to go back to my old department. I tried to go back to Tempe because I was running and gunning down there. I could do all, lock people up left and right, take people off the street that needed to be off the street. And when I went to Fairfax, I didn't have that. And because I was just not paying attention to things that I could be doing to help versus paying attention to what interested me, and I didn't care.
mm,
And one thing led to another, and I found comfort in somebody else, and I found comfort drinking, and it led me to, you know, leave my spouse at the time, and uh, essentially it got worse and worse. I got in trouble. I was talking to citizens in a way that was disrespectful. I was telling people, I was calling people jerks. I was telling people I was going to bitch slap them, just like out of control behavior that was unnecessary. It just wasn't professional. It was, I think back at what I did, and I'm like, I shouldn't have been there anymore. I luckily I almost got fired, and all that came to a head one night when I was drinking, and I was under investigation for calling somebody a name or whatever it was, and I ended up with a gun in my mouth. And
wow.
fortunately for me, I blacked out and don't really remember much after that. There were some other things that happened. I just don't remember it, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
And
Well, thankful you're still here.
yeah, me too. Me too. Very thankful.
The pressures of the job, the lack of being able to really being taught. I mean, we're probably about the same age or so, and the we grew up in a different mentality, right? And I think our age group, our culture grew up that way. Tough out things, get over things. Don't
Yep.
talk about your feelings, suppress everything. Uh, we don't want to hear how you're mentally not capable of doing your job. And you're working in an environment where it's constant barrage of like trauma, 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 all these things. And we say it now pretty lightly because people are being more educated on this, right? So there you are, pressure points up, you are about to take your own life, and you wake up the next morning. And kind of how did things start to kind of pick up for you? At what point did you say, I'm going in for myself? What changed? Who changed it?
So, yeah, that next morning was rough. I don't cry. I'm not a crier. I mean, that's
Yeah.
generational. That's what you did. And what's interesting, going back to real quick before I get into that,
Yeah.
generational is generations are what built the culture in some of these organizations as they stand now. It's
Right.
that's the generations that built those have that lasting impact for the socialization and the culture you see in policing today. But it's starting to break down. So that's the benefit to it. But in my case, I woke up the next day just bawling my eyes out, just trying to figure out what the hell am I going to do? What do I do next? I mean, what's next? I can't do this anymore. And I went to work that night. I worked nights. I was banished to night shift, which I actually loved. I love working nights, and it was actually a good turnaround for me later on in my career. But I had a supervisor. You could tell there was something wrong. I couldn't tell, but obviously somebody could. And I had my supervisor. We pulled car to car, and he saw something, and he's like, Rick, you need to get some help. And he gave me the number EAP, which I had no idea we did that. And I ignored it for a couple of days and let it go. But then I got relieved of duty at that point, which just added to it. And I I I called the number. I called the number. They set me up with a counselor. Um, and I I went all in. I said
Yeah,
I
baby.
gotta do something.
Yeah.
I've got to do something because I'm not going to be here. I've lost my way. I was trying to finish my bachelor's degree at the time, and I was just I was a mess, financial debt. And that's the other thing, financial debt. And there's just all kinds, just downhill, downhill, downhill. And
Yeah.
I needed to go uphill.
Yeah.
And talking to and going to counseling for the first time, I think I cried the whole thing. But you
Yeah.
know what? It was relieving because somebody
Yeah.
was listening to me and hearing me as a person and understanding and recognizing humanity. And the first thing she said when I stopped was, Rick, you're a good person. You're
Yeah.
not a bad person. You're a good person. You've just been dealing with this stuff for so long. You just don't know you don't know what's up and what's down. And that's where we need to find. We need to find a way for you to go back up. And it just that was the moment for me. And
Wow.
she was amazing, and she knew exactly what I needed. But she gave me it's funny, her I don't know if she's still out there, but her name was Dr. Love, believe it or not. And
It's perfect.
she had a way about her that was very tough. And I got matched with the best clinician I could have ever got matched with in my life. And she was tough on me, but at the same time, she nurtured me to understand that, hey, you know what? You're a good person. And that's what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
Um, Instead of me saying it to myself, I'm a great person, being self-interested, and actually understanding that, you know what? I have a good heart. I have a good interest in wanting to do good in the world, do good and be good. That's I love Stoicism philosophy, and
Mm.
that's where I am today. But at the time, I needed that. And after probably a year of going to her, um, and then another supervisor, a captain at the time, saved my career, gave me another chance. He saw the humanity, and I went in, and you know, she and I talked about how I would just throw it all out there, throw it on the table. Just don't be afraid to be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. You're a human being, for God's sake.
That's
Be
it.
vulnerable. I was vulnerable at that time, saved my career, and started going up.
That's that's an amazing. You gave me goosebumps like 5 times walking through that because it's so relatable in terms of that moment where you are completely down, you don't know where to go, and then you rise up and you'd say, okay, I need to do something. I want to live. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to have the headaches. I don't want to have that crap running through my head all the time. How do I do this? And you're so blessed that you were able to get paired up with somebody that shared that relatable kind of sense right off the bat. It took me a couple times before I found my angel. Her name's Diane Logren. She's down here in Dallas. She's absolutely amazing, but you have to have that relatable connection where you can get past the 8 seconds. I always talk about this of your own demons and what you have going on in your mind to be able to talk about it. Because if you can't get past that 8 seconds with that person you're talking to, it's not the right person. And it sounds like you got hit like right away. And I talked to veterans, combat vets, to people in business that when they find that person like me and you just melt. And I remember my first session too. Like I don't cry. I was raised not to cry. I mean, and I had
Right.
good parents, just like your dad. My dad was good, would have died for me, done everything they did, to try to make our lives as good as possible, but not on that mental side, right? Not like it is today, and where we can really change. So, congratulations to you. Number one, on just standing up for yourself. Number two, I'm so happy that you were able to unleash that beast, and so now you've got this. Like you're learning more about yourself. You're hearing things that are now kind of putting your own life into perspective. You realize, like, I am a good person. I just I had all this crap around me. So what was your next step? And you can fast forward if you want, but I want to get into definitely what you're doing now and how your life has brought you to this point and what you want changed.
Wow. Yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say it was an easy journey. It wasn't an easy journey at all.
Yeah.
It took me a little while. And I will tell you that the second pivotal moment for me, and this goes to what I'm doing now, and I can get into that a little
Yeah.
more. But I do want to hit on one thing you said, that match with somebody. is so critical. I'm a leadership coach now. I love coaching. I absolutely love being able to coach police leaders who have these same things from a leadership perspective and have an understanding of what they can and can't do. And connecting with them is so critical. And having that trust and building that relationship is so, so important.
Yeah.
And I know it's a challenge in the mental health space, especially in law enforcement. There's just a limited number of clinicians that actually have that relevant experience to be able to build those relationships. I got lucky because I found somebody that, decided to give me tough love, Dr. Love, tough love. And, but you don't find that a lot of times today.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges I know that they face. So
Yeah.
anyway, get back to it. One of the other pivotal moments for me was I was driving back home. I was, separated at the time, and I'd moved back with my dad in Pennsylvania, and I was driving an hour and a half, from work at night in the morning, going up home. And I started being able to focus back on school. I wasn't quite there yet. I was thinking about doing my MBA, but I was driving back home and I listened to audiobooks. And I had an audiobook, and I don't know if it was a professor that recommended it to me or just happened to find it. It was leadership, and I started to find the love of leadership, the study of an art of leadership. And it was called The Leadership and Self-Deception, Getting Out of the Box. It was by the Arbinger Institute.
Hmm.
And it was 2003. I'll never, that was the tough year for me. And a little bit later in my span here, later that year, and I was driving home listening to the book, and there was a point in the book where it talks about that inward focus and how your impact on others. And if you're looking inward, you're not focusing on people around you, and you're seeing people as objects, you're seeing people as vehicles. And there was a moment in the story when I pulled over and I just started crying. I'm like, what is going on with me?
Hmm.
So I sat there just trying to collect myself and repeated that section of the book that really highlighted how I was feeling and what I had been doing to those around me and the people that I work with, and impacting, oh my God, and then there's like a next thing, like, God, how do I resolve this?
Yeah.
And it was nice because the book, it's a parable. So it's a story, but it's a business related story, which was interesting because, you don't think about how these things impact you at work and, the personal life. Once you start fixing in your personal life, you can come into work, and understanding those things at work is a little bit easier. But I related it to myself and how I could resolve things at work, because that's where all the issues I had stemmed from. So thinking about it from that perspective, I started really digging into it and just listening to it over and over and over again. Then I read the next book. It added me a piece, which just added on to that. And anyway, that journey led me to finishing my MBA. I went back. I went full force back into being a cop. But I did it in the way that was paying homage to why I got to the job in the first place. I finally remembered why I was there: to
That's
serve
awesome.
others. The
Wow.
service piece of it was the most important thing to me. And I realized, this is what I need to get back to. And when I did that, Todd, when I focused on that, when I focused on others, when I started seeing other people, adjusting my efforts and measuring my impact on them, it completely changed my career. I finally got to be a academy instructor, which was one of my dreams. I wanted to teach at the academy. I'd been a cop for so long in so many different places. I wanted to share those experiences with new people. And I had some great friends. I had some good relationships. I was always troublesome on the relationship side of things, my personal life. But it taught me that was the last thing I really had to fix in my life, and not really fix, but resolve. And it
Right.
eventually did, because I met my wife today, who is like an angel for me. It's like
Yeah.
she lifts me up in every way, which is great. And um, so anyway, it got me a fantastic end to my career, and it led me to just change my outlook and on the job, and change my outlook in how I was being and bringing myself and showing up for the people around me. And when I started more of focusing on others first than necessarily myself and what I needed, just things started clicking. It made sense. Life makes sense, and your job makes sense, and that's how I got to where I am today. And I had a great second career in software where I was helping police departments improve their technology. And then now I came to the Arbinger Institute last year, January 2023, 20 years after I read Leadership and Self-Deception, by the way, kind of a dream job. I got my PhD in organizational leadership, specializing in public safety. And because I love the study of leadership, I love the impact a leader can have based on my story alone. I realized, and talking to some of my professors on the way, listen, this is how I can make a difference in changing the culture in the police departments and trying to break down that us versus them mentality and give these folks the tools and the ability and the development capabilities to start seeing other people the way I started seeing them. And the way my supervisor saw me in a moment of crisis. And to see me when I'm in front of the desk saying, I'm going to fire you or I'm going to keep you. Which one am I going to do? And understanding that my story had a different ending and he helped me write that ending. And that's where I am today.
Man, that was deep. That was awesome. And number one, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. That's courage, right? That's people don't understand that in especially in our time. And I'm seeing that at the younger generation starting to learn this a little bit better, but it is not weak to share your emotions.
Yeah.
It's not weak to say, okay, I'm dealing with a lot right now. I need some help. It's not weak to go to therapy. It's not weak to acknowledge that you've been knocked down or you're not the person that you want to be. And it's strong, right? It takes strength. And everything that we have done in our past, and you in particular, and being in law enforcement and going through all these things and getting hit hard and knocked down and bouncing back up, you were only able to do that so much. And all of a sudden you went, I can't take this anymore. And if it hadn't been for that supervisor that was courageous enough to tell you, hey man, I don't really care if we're friends or not after I tell you this, but you need help.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, you need help. And then the therapist brought you through that journey, the self-realization that you realized, hey, wait a second, I want to get back to where I first signed up to do this and serve others and to help others. And I'm a firm believer, you hit it right on the head because I believe in this as well, that if you're having a bad day, if you feel like your life sometimes maybe gets stagnant, go help somebody. Go be kind, go be extra kind to somebody because that's going to uplift not only your soul, but it's going to uplift your movement of who you want to be, right? You're going to not only uplift them, but you're helping yourself too. And it's not selfish to go help others that are in need. So there you are. You're now like you're on this roll, man. Like the comeback story, and you got to the academy stuff and you're teaching. That's the other part. Like in life, we have to screw up, right? Without failure, there's not going to be success. You can't really taste the victory, the championship trophy if you haven't gone through the grind of things and learning about yourself. So what are you doing now today in working with law enforcement agencies? And how does this apply, Rick, to everyday life too?
Wow.
And what I mean by everyday life, I'm talking outside the first responder community.
Right. Failure is just an opportunity to get better, Todd. I love that.
That's great.
It's kind of and I prescribe to your mantra too, is if I can help one person a day, that's where I started my focus, right? I
Mm,
think I said to myself one day, I can't save the world. And cops, one of the things where like, I want to go out and, save the world and, do all that I can. You can't. You just can't. It's not possible. You're one
yeah.
person. You're one person part of a bigger group of people who are there to serve. If you can help one person a day, and that's my mantra every single day, come when I sit down and to do this work that I do today or do tomorrow, it's to help one person, whether it be the students that I teach in graduate school or what I do in my work at the Arbinger Institute, which what we're doing is really focused on bringing humanity back to the workplace. And I have a number of law enforcement related clients that have see the importance of that as a foundational element of things that we're not taught. We maybe we get taught at home, and this is something I had a conversation with the other day with a colleague of mine. We teach how to be a good person, be kind, be just that element of remembering that people are human beings, and it goes back to what you said earlier about the therapist, right? Understanding that we're human beings, we have a human side of us because we're all connected at that level. That's the level we're all connected at. Why not start our development, whether you're joining a police department, whether you're joining a corporate space, whether you're joining a baseball team, whether you're joining a football team, the base element that we all are connected on is being a human being. And when we see other
That's right.
people as human beings with challenges, hopes, dreams, futures, desires, interests, that matter like I matter, we can all start to get on the same page and build collaboration toward fighting the mission,
Man,
doing the mission, just
wow,
doing it all together. And that's what we do
that's
at the
awesome.
Arbor Institute. And that's what I'm focused on in the public safety space. And I work with state and local government too, because we have a lot of challenges there, short staffing, budgeting, all the things. And it's in every space, but we struggle with it the most in public safety, and we need it the most because we have this culture, as I go back to over and over again, we have this culture where it's still prevalent. It's still there. And until we overcome that and until we realize it, it's gonna keep going. And we can't build the community trust. We can't build the community engagement. We just can't get out of our own way until we start realizing that. But the problem comes back to, and what I'm working on today, one of the things I'm very passionate about with coaching and being able to coach leaders and help build self-awareness. I think that's a big piece of it. Until we realize this and understand that this is a piece to the puzzle, it's not the answer. We can build that humanity and help us drive and change, because you have to, if you're thinking with that mindset of I see others and build on that, it addresses the behaviors. You can do behaviors in two different ways. You can do it from I'm focused on me behavior and handle something, or tell somebody they're in trouble, you're getting fired, or you're doing it wrong. Or I can do it from I'm thinking about you. I see you as a person. I can do a behavior that way. And that's the way we want people to behave and or act and be developed in law enforcement in any position. And I think that is what drives everything else.
I think you really, for me, it totally made sense when you just talk about treating people the way you would want to be treated, number one, but understanding that everybody's got a story, right? I'll sit sometimes at church. I'm always sitting with my back up against the wall. It's just part of the trauma that you go through. But I'm always sitting there, and sometimes I'll gaze at different people, or just I'll hone in, and you just think about like that person has the same probably type of issues that I go through. Maybe it's not the same experience in the physical side, but we're probably at some point he or she's been knocked down. She's probably fought with their spouse or something else, or there's just something going on with them. Everybody's got a story, right? And to bring the humanity into that, and I think that's important for our senior leadership in any
Mhm.
business and any law enforcement to understand. And it's not to say that uh, people, if they have that conversation, that they're treating that person as a weak person. They're trying to actually empower that person. Because if that senior leader gets off the high horse and says, you know what, I'm going to go down. I'm never really down on the pit floor. I'm going to go ask somebody out to lunch. There's a relatable story here with kids. I might even fabricate something and just say, hey, I'm having a hard time with my daughter, and she's going through high school right now. And I know you, as maybe a rookie or somebody, is having kids, and you seem like you're having a great relationship with your kids, or whatever that is. Let's go have a coffee. And all of a sudden now you've got this humanized kind of relationship outside of work that's happening. And that leader has come down off the horse. The rookie or whoever that is in the corporate office, or that young teacher, is now having this coffee, sharing knowledge with the upper management piece. What happens after that meeting's over? That younger staff, that younger individual, or even a veteran that's just working their tail off down in the marketing department somewhere, now walks by the office of their boss, instead of trying to hurry up and think that they need to act like they're busy, actually sticks their head in and says, hey, Bob, how's your daughter doing? And all of a sudden now there's that connection, right? And now that person might actually want to be innovative or communicate on some level and say, hey, I have a question for you now. Can we go get a coffee? It sparks innovation, it sparks communication, it sparks love in the workplace. And I know that may sound corny, but it
Mhm.
really does, because in the workplace, on the teacher side, you don't get what you get in law enforcement or the first responder or as a team. You don't get those pats on the butt. You don't get the trophies in the end, right? I gave a good presentation. Where's my trophy? You don't get any of that sense of camaraderie ship or anything else. And it needs to be open. You need to have that open line of communication, the self-awareness. You need to understand where you're at. If you're struggling, stand back up, talk about it, find someone you can share a relatable story with. There's probably somebody else. And if you're on the other side of that, like your supervisor was with you, that probably saw him or him inside of you and saw maybe some of the struggles that he maybe experienced, and he wants to catch you at the right time and say, hey man, you need help. I've been down this road. I know what you're going to experience. Might be too late for me in his own mind, even though it's not. He stepped up for you. So what you're doing right now with trying to educate the humanity part of where we need to be in law enforcement, in first responders, and in life with people, is so key. And I'm just happy to like have this connection with you. I want to bring you back on and share some stories of really kind of what you're getting into more. But how does if I'm a first responder, law enforcement, how do we get in touch with you and how do we learn more about what you're doing?
Well, the easiest way to reach me is on LinkedIn. I'm
Okay.
on LinkedIn, prominent on LinkedIn. All my contact information's in there, all my background and what I'm there. I do coaching in a private practice, so I coach senior police leaders. I see senior education folks, business folks. Even one-on-one with some other coworkers that I have. And then the Arbinger Institute. There's a link, again, the link is in my LinkedIn profile, and you can reach out to me there. All my email and contact information is in there. It's the easiest way to get in touch with me. But I love to have these conversations, and I've loved this conversation with you, Todd. And I'm happy to have this, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about my story a little bit more. I got a little more in depth than I've ever gotten before, so I
Mm,
appreciate that from you.
it's
Um,
good.
but I'm happy to share that with anybody, man. If you're in a bad spot, send me a note. I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm here to help, and I've been there. And
Yeah.
leadership is an action, not a position. And when top leaders and people in those positions realize that, you know what, maybe I should go out and shag a couple calls at night just to show them I'm out there. It how does that elevates everybody? I
Yeah.
mean, that's, you're recognizing that, you know what, I'm sitting up in the ivory tower, but if I come down and I put myself in a position where everybody else is, we can all start working together and focusing on the mission. So,
That's right. I mean, that goes back to rolling up your sleeves and sticking your boots back on the ground, right?
amen.
You have to. You have to be that way. If you want to be a good leader in life, you have to get down to the ground floor and fight with everyone else side by side. There
Yeah.
is nobody out front. It's a team effort all the way through and through. And that's the sign of a great leader, right? And I think I want to touch on one last thing before we sign off. One of the things that I recognized early, after I got back from Vegas and going through my trauma, I go through my trauma all the time. I always talk about like keeping my trauma out in front of me so I can always recognize the feelings, the spidey senses of like, okay, I'm not feeling comfortable right now. My speech is starting to stutter a little bit, so I'm going to take a break, right? As long as it's up here, I can see it. I can bob and weave and maneuver around it or with it. But I noticed I was getting a lot of like Facebook Messenger messages from law enforcement, mostly across the world. And one officer in Boston contacted me and said, "Hey, I was in officer involved shooting. I lost my partner. I was like 3 years ago. I tried going to therapy. It's been driving me crazy. I listened to your story and I have that same pounding in the back of my skull. I went back and I'm gonna go back and try to find somebody that's relatable that I can speak to and get past the 8 seconds that you referred to. I must have done an interview or something, and it spoke about that. 3 months later, he contacts me back and says, "Hey, brother, I want to let you know I found my therapist. And
Nice.
like you have your angel, I found mine. And it's been amazing." That's what we do this for, right? And
Yeah.
I didn't realize it in the beginning because when I first started, when I got back, all the story was on what I did in Vegas. Oh, you did all these things, you're a hero, all this stuff. I didn't want to be called that. I just
Right.
did what I needed to do. But it was all about the story up until about a year ago, year and a half ago. I started to put all those things together, that it's not the story, like your story opens up the idea, the mind, right? So anybody that's struggling in law enforcement, anybody that's really struggling in your line of work, that's relatable in terms of what you went through. You're sharing that story. So people are like, okay, I get that part. I'm shaking my head like, yep, I got that. I went through that moment of silence like you did, where I'm contemplating, what is life all about? Is it even worth it to keep moving forward? That moment of silence is the scariest moment. I always talk about it, but you broke it. Somebody broke that silence for you, right? We disrupted the silence, and you were able to stand back up for yourself. And that's where we need to learn that if you're down, go to people like you, right? Talk to
Mhm.
people like me that have been that way. Learn from our what we've gone through and where we're at and how we're able to stand back up and stand tall for ourselves, right? The moment we go in to help others now, right? And so anyways, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but your story just is really inspiring on the uplift and where you're at and how you're giving back now, and you're just helping others, and that's what we should be doing from the get-go, right? That's how you
Amen.
started it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
crazy. Hey, Rick, thank you so much for being on. I'm going in. This was really a real pleasure. Friend for life, man. I really mean that. Like, I know that I get told this all the time. Like, sometimes the chaos and the trauma that we experience kind of bonds us mentally at times, but you're just a good dude. You got a great personality to you. And I think really anybody could just seriously learn a lot. And I think this goes way beyond law enforcement.
Great.
You
Yep.
even talked about, your wife. Thank her for being an educator. To all the educators out there, the nurses. I mean, everybody. Power to you, because you're just on the front line and dealing with all that, and what you're doing. I think it's just opening up opportunities for someone to say, "Hey, you know what? I need help," or "Hey, you know what? My friend's struggling, and I'm gonna call her, or I'm gonna call him, and we're just gonna talk." And when you start that conversation, man, get ready, because it's going to pour out, and absorb it and be there. And that's all we can do in our life. Right. So
And we don't have all the answers. We can never have the answers. All you can do sometimes is listen.
that's right. Just listen.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you, sir, for being on. I'm so great to know you, and look forward to following your journey.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Todd. Thank you.